Hey y'all, today I'll be discussing a true crime case. It may be kind of triggering for some viewers because I'll be discussing DV, so viewer discretion is advised. 22-year-old Dominique Dunne was the daughter of ranching heiress Ellen Dunne and the writer-producer Dominique Dunne. By the early 1980s, she had done a bunch of movies and TV shows, including her most famous role of Dana Freeling in the Poltergeist. So during a party one night, she met this guy named John Thomas Sweeney. Now, Sweeney was a chef at this restaurant called Ma Maison in Los Angeles. It's really glamorous. A lot of Hollywood elite at the time would frequent that restaurant. So after they met at the party, they really hit it off. And then after a few months of knowing each other, they eventually moved in. Now, Sweeney was a pretty big guy in comparison to Dominique. He was about 6'1", about 200 pounds, and she was only about 5'1", 112 pounds. Now, everything was picture perfect at first, but then the differences between how they both grew up really started to become more obvious. For example, Dominique grew up in a family that was pretty well off, and it was a pretty loving family. Now, Sweeney, in contrast, he was from very humble beginnings. He grew up in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. Now, his father liked to drink a lot, and he would put his hands on his wife. Now, eager to escape his troubled upbringing, he would begin to study the culinary arts to create a better life for himself. Now, as Sweeney's relationship with Dominique began to progress, he wanted more and more control over her life. Sometimes he would even show up to her acting classes, and one night things really escalated. So one night on August 27th, 1982, he grabbed her and he snatched out chunks of her hair. Now, obviously she was terrified, so she eventually was able to escape to her mother's house. But a few days later, Dominique went back with Sweeney. And within a month, Sweeney was back to his old ways. One night, Sweeney threw her to the floor and put his hands around her neck. Fortunately, a friend who was sleeping in a nearby bedroom heard what was going on and intervened. So Dominique was able to run to the bathroom and escape through the window. Now, once she got out the window, she ran to her car, and once Sweeney heard her car start up, he sprinted outside. That's when Sweeney threw himself on top of the car. So Dominique did drive off, but she did stop so he could get off the car, and then she continued on to her mother's house. So large dark marks could be seen on her, and you could even see it in her episode of Hill Street Blues, which you can see here. For Dominique, that was finally the end of their relationship. But on October 30th, 1982, Sweeney showed up at her door, and Dominique agreed to speak with him outside. Now, also at her home at the time was 22-year-old actor David Packer. He was there to rehearse a scene for the show V that they were going to do. So after Dominique and Sweeney went outside, Packer said that he soon heard angry voices. Then he heard two screams and a thud. He then called a friend and said, "If I lose my life tonight, Sweeney did it." He then called police, and then he went outside, and that's when he saw Sweeney crouching down beside Dominique, who was laying on the ground by some bushes. Now, medical examiners later testified that Sweeney had put his hands around Dominique's throat for about 4 to 6 minutes. After paramedics rushed her to the hospital, she slipped into a coma where she stayed for 5 days. Then on November 4th, 1982, Dominique was taken off life support and she passed away.